Joining me in the studio now is Mariana Prieto. She's the designer for wildlife conservation. And she's got a wild life, actually. So she came up with that just like that right now. Okay, Mariana, great to see you.
It's great to meet you. Thank you so much.
Thank you for coming in. Okay, you've done a lot of fascinating, trippy things, and I'm going to ask you a curveball question in a second. So those are always fun. But first of all, what does it mean to be a designer for wildlife conservation?
Okay, I'll try to keep this as short as possible, but it always takes a little bit of time. The first question is, what is design, right? And that could be mean a plethora of things. And so if you boil down design to its essence, many times people think of it as something that makes things beautiful, right? It's connected to aesthetics and
not if I design it, but yeah. Okay, or if you design it.
But in many ways, it is true. But the main thing that makes designers is that they find what is the thing that makes people tick? What is the human behavior behind our actions? And then you design for that. So furniture designers will create a beautiful couch because that's what people are looking for to put in their living rooms. Fashion designers look for trends because that's what people are also looking for.
Totally get it. So how about wildlife? What are they looking for?
So what I do is I'm a service designer. What I design is more service and programs. In wildlife specifically, what I do is figure out how do people really feel about something, and then I design around that behavior as long as it has an impact on the wildlife around it. So that sounds really broad and vague. I'll narrow it down to a very specific example of a project I'm working on now, where we are talking about the second largest threat to all animals in the world, which is called human-wildlife conflict. And human-wildlife conflict is when people and animals fight over space or over resources. So when you have your pet killed by a coyote or bears go through a trash can, that's all human-wildlife conflict. In East Africa, it's when elephants eat corn, when they destroy farmers' livelihoods by eating an entire acre of corn in one night because they love sweet, delicious.
So how do you fix that? That seems hard.
So an organization,
because on the one hand, I'm against the bear in my backyard. On the other hand, I don't want to hurt the bear. So what do we do?
So in this case, this organization I'm working with called Wild Aid, they are developing an elephant repellent, which is exactly what it sounds like. It's a spray you put on your crop, and it stops elephants from eating that crop.
Oh, I thought it was going to be like a mace. I was like, I'm not volunteering to do the repellent to the elephant. No way. He'll remember.
So you put it around, and then my job as a service designer is figuring out, well, who's gonna make this? And who's gonna buy this? And how much should it cost? And how will we scale it across all of Africa and all of Asia so that all elephants can be stopped by this repellent?
So that's an amazing job. I'm always amazed by the different things that people do, which then leads me to my curveball question. So you've done a lot of amazing things in your life. You helped to reduce teen pregnancies in Zambia, building social enterprises for female farmers in India, and supporting victims of a typhoon in the Philippines, and it goes on and on and on, right? So are you happy?
That's the best question of all. Yes, it's a resounding yes. I am happy, especially now that I found my home with wild animals. Since I was a little kid, all I wanted to do was work with wild animals. My job did not exist, I must say. A designer in wildlife conservation does not exist.
Yeah.
But you either find a way or you find an excuse. And I'm not ready to find an excuse.
Damn, Mariana's not playing. You either find a way or you find an excuse. Can I write a book with that title? Jeez and Lord mercy, that's good. And I didn't know that you invented the entire category that is your profession.
I'm working on it.
Okay. A lot of whys in there. But the reason I asked is because I've now asked this of very wealthy people, very accomplished people in your standard ways of being accomplished, lots of hit TV shows, etc. I've asked it of very famous people. And in my experience, the only people who answer yes, that they're happy, are people who actually help others. Like the famous don't say yes, the rich don't say yes, right? Only the people who help others say yes. So it's fascinating. So out of all those different experiences, first of all, why'd you do it? Like what made you think, no, I'm not gonna be an investment banker. I don't know if that was on your board for possibilities, right? I'm not gonna be a lawyer or a doctor. I'm gonna go help female farmers in India.
It was a journey, and I think that's true of most people who end up in a weird job. I don't think people will just wake up at night when you're 16 and say, I want to be in some random weird job like a designer for wild animals. It was a journey. My first dream was to be a car designer. I wanted to design Ferraris and Lamborghinis and
oh, that's fun too, okay.
it had nothing to do with helping people, right?
Yeah.
But little by little, you start to realize what makes you happy, what is interesting, what you're good at, what you're terrible at, and you might avoid. Yeah, so I have to say it was through the people that I met along the way and just trying things out, seeing what is more interesting. And
so of all the different places you went and all the different projects you did, is there one that stands out for you as most impactful, interesting, that you're like, well, you know, I can't wait to tell my kids that story?
I worked for a year as a fellow at a design consultancy called IDEO.org, and it was spectacular because it was fast-paced. We were on the road all the time. We were home for 2 weeks. We were flying on the road in Africa, India for 3 weeks. So it was 2 and 3, 2 and 3. I also met my husband during that time.
No.
So that makes it significant. And we met in the field on the road, feeling sick and staying out in the bush and up till late, and it was
all right.
It was a rough job, but it was really great.
Yeah, sometimes the best things are in the toughest times, and it's also a little schmoopy papoopy, so that's a very nice romantic story. I talked to the executive producer of Seinfeld yesterday, so I got Seinfeld in the head. So how about the humanitarian work? How does it relate to the wildlife?
It relates in that my real experience as a professional is in going into a community, finding what is the problem, finding what is it that people really want, what is it that they fear, and then designing something for them. So in the case of teenagers in Zambia, it was, how can we tell a story about birth control in a way that makes sense to a teenage girl in the middle of Lusaka, right? And I was very good at finding that empathy and being able to connect with it and then designing for it. So in that case, we took all of the birth control methods, and instead of talking immediately about side effects, for example, we turned the story around, and so every method has a different character. So Miss Perfection is the pill because she likes everything on time and she loves routines. Right?
Okay, fun, we're having fun.
So that says a lot about the character, like the method and what it's about. So this is an example of how design plays into it.
Yes.
With wildlife, it's still people. It's still not just communities, it's also people like us and our relationship with conservation. It's about understanding people and how can I design something that will encourage you to get closer to conservation.
All right, another curveball. What is your favorite animal in the wild? Go.
Oh, in the wild?
Yes. No,
I
you
was
can't
gonna
pick
say horse.
well, horse maybe, okay. But you can't say like cat or dog. Okay.
How about a Mustang? It's a wild horse.
Okay, all right, Mustang's badass. Okay. So I just, one more out of curiosity, then I want to ask about how people can interact with this. Is where did you grow up? Like I'm wondering like how this got into your head in the first place. I know the Lamborghini thing, but like why design? Instead, where'd you grow up? I
grew up in Colombia. I'm from Bogota. I still spend a lot of time there, but I left full-time Bogota in 2004 or so. And living there shaped me as wanting to do something for the world, for other people. My parents were both people who always taught me that that was the best way in which you could find happiness. Actually, it was exactly what you said.
Oh, look at that,
yeah.
Okay. So now, designforwildlife.org is your website. Who should go there? Is it people who are looking to design things for wildlife, or like what, like, you see what I'm saying?
Yes, so it's really made for wildlife conservation organizations.
Okay.
So I work with organizations like Wild Aid I'm working with now, and it's organizations that are already working with wild animals. They have phenomenal teams of biologists and scientists, and they could use a hand in developing services for the communities of people that they work with, for even fundraising, because we could get a lot better at fundraising if you understand why people donate or don't donate.
Right, and you do fundraising for those organizations?
So what I would do in that case is design a project around how can we get more people to fund more conservation work. Today, 97% of all donations in the United States go to anything else but animals. The 3% that go to animals, only 1 of that percent goes to international wildlife conservation. But in the entire world, 97% of that is coming from the United States.
Oh, wow.
So think about that for a second. That 1% comes from the US, funds 93% of all wildlife conservation projects worldwide.
All right, so people can make a big difference.
We could do a lot more.
We could do a lot more. All right, Mariana, thank you so much for joining us. Designforwildlife.org. Thank you for coming in, appreciate it.
Thank you so much, it was great to be here.